Michigan has not shown the habit of looking past anybody. And that's even from, a team that had an, awful year last year. Like, we're not talking as if Michigan won it all last year and we have to stay focused every week. Like, we're talking about a team that struggled last year, and this year has done a really good job of, week in and week out of staying focused on, their opponent. They haven't looked past anyone.
They haven't had to do that. They haven't had to do that after an Ohio State win. So I'm not saying it's going to make a difference, but that has not happened before. So, I understand what you're saying, but we're talking about a whole different animal now. Now that the monkey's off the back, it may not affect them. It may be if they're listen, I'll say this: if they're zeroed in and they win this game by 20, which a lot of people expect them to win, I don't care if the line says 10.5 or not. If they go out there and win by 2 or 3 scores, they're my favorite, at least to make the college football national title game. I mean, there's no question about it. They may not win. I think Georgia's really good, but they're absolutely my favorite. And like I said before, I'm rooting for them. So I just question that. It's a do or die game. Michigan's playing with all the pressure in this game. They've got everything to lose. Iowa doesn't really have anything to lose. I still think Iowa could sneak into the playoff if they win. It would have to be chaos. I don't think Iowa's one of the 4 best teams, but I think it's possible. But Iowa doesn't have anything to win or anything to lose in this game. So, but I understand what you're saying. The focus has been different for Michigan.
We've seen Northwestern give Ohio State fits in this game.
Yeah,
so I mean, like by no means do I think this game is going to be just a cakewalk from the go. No, I just think that it always goes back to the way Michigan tends to do to teams. They just lately, right? You can, Corey, you're 100% correct. Early in the season, examples like Rutgers. Even at Nebraska, those all were tests from Michigan where, they were easily the better team personnel wise, but the final score didn't dictate that, right? It didn't really. But I just think that lately this formula they have built and that they have perfected in their own way, not a perfect team, but perfect formula for them, is they just wear you out. And I can see Iowa coming to this game, ready to go. And I think they're a physical football team. I think the most physical teams in the West, Big Ten West, is Iowa and Wisconsin to me every year. And I always look at that division as a 2-team race, especially if they're good.
But Northwestern, Northwestern's made it the Big Ten title game more than Iowa, but
yeah,
they're so right. They're bipolar. They're bipolar.
Yeah, they're so bipolar. That's why it's hard. I mean, look, Des know this. I love Pat Fitz. Pat Fitz.
Why wouldn't you?
I wish he would leave, but he just won't. But that's a conversation for another day.
They'll probably win the division next year. So
yes, right. We're counting them out. But I just it's so I expect Iowa to be physical. I just for 60 minutes. I just. You're right. That's going to be tough.
And I see where you guys are coming from. Again, I hope that it's almost like some fans take offense when I say that I think Iowa's got a good chance in this game. It's like, shame on you for predicting that. I'm just like, like I say, I am not, I said this yesterday to Justin Rowe. I am not normally, I'm sort of I fight pessimism when I'm on, because I've been burned so many times with an offense that never produces. And so I don't feel confident and loose like I feel prior to this game. I never feel this way. So I'm like, I'll ride the high and be like, let's just go pedal to the metal and maybe it'll pay off. And like I said, Coach Ferentz, I love the guy. He's been a great ambassador to this program. The struggles offensively have been well documented. So I hope that he's been here for 23 years and he's never really shown the willingness to make a change, a major, besides a quarterback change here and there, but I'm talking schematic changes during a game that I can remember, any significant schematic changes, like selling out against the run against Michigan. I hope and I have faith that this is the one time where he's going to do it. And I like to think his son, Brian, who I've been very critical of, he's a young mind. He is a Ferentz, but he's a young mind. So, it may be a conversation that he's already had with Kirk this week that, look, Dad, we got to do something different. This is going to have to be a total 180. So yeah, you're right. That's what I'm banking on, while not losing the principle, the foundation of Iowa's 10-2, which is special teams and defense.
Yeah. Corey, if you had to put a ceiling on the number of points that you think Iowa could score in this game, like what's, best case scenario, like how many points do you think? And let's stick to the offense, right? Like pick sixes, different stuff like that. But just the offense, what would you say the ceiling is as far as what Iowa can score offensively against Michigan?
Iowa's averaging 25.7 points per game on the season from strictly offensive points. Now that includes, you force a turnover inside the opponent's 5, and then you punch it in. That's an offensive score. So I'm giving them that. But even if you count those as offensive scores, Iowa only averages 21.8 points per game on offensive scores. That ain't good. So I think the answer to your question, points on offense, you're probably looking at somewhere between 20 and 25. You're hopeful that you can win the game scoring. I think if they score 20 points on offense, I think there's a chance. I think there's a good chance Iowa can win that game. And that doesn't sound like much, but that's also assuming like maybe you get a special teams touchdown, maybe you get, like last week, you get a block punt return for a touchdown, maybe you get something like that. I recall, I don't have the score up, but I think it was like 14-12 in 2016 against Michigan. I know it was a low-scoring game, and the final kick by Keith Duncan. I will say this, rushing the football for Iowa, we haven't talked about Iowa's rushing game. Nebraska's good against the rush, but they're not great. I mean, you guys are kind of middle of the pack in the Big Ten. I want to say I think it's like 3.3 yards per carry for opposing running backs, which is good, but it's kind of, like I say, kind of average. Iowa's average running the ball. They've improved. They were actually pretty bad a few weeks ago, and they've improved here because Goodson has ran the ball well as of late. So I think you can expect Iowa should be able to knock off about 3.5 yards per carry, which again isn't great. But hopefully that's enough to keep you ahead of the chains and at least figure out a way to generate some points. But I'd say 20 to 25 offensively. Okay.
Well, do you gentlemen have a score prediction for the game this Saturday?
I will make mine. I'll be making mine on my channel Friday, so I'll leave everybody in suspense on that. But like I said, I am predicting an Iowa win. Okay. Last week I predicted a Minnesota win, and I said it was all just hope and heart. And I'm not saying that this week. I know Dre may say that I'm predicting with hope and heart, but I am predicting Iowa win, and I'll give my score Friday.
Okay. Dre, what about yourself?
I'll go 24-10 Michigan.
Okay. I'm going to go – I think I'm going to go 35-10 Michigan. I think it'll be –
Bloodbath. Bloodbath.
Well, and Michigan's they're never
trying to get a benefit of the doubt.
Well, the thing is I'm not saying they're gonna
you think Iowa's defense sucks?
A 35 10 at half or anything like that. But I think for Michigan, like how they operate, it's going to be like it's going to be a slow burn. You'll probably.
But isn't Iowa's defense pretty darn good? Like you guys know that Iowa's defense is really good, right? Is it not good?
I put a lot of stock into Michigan's run game because they've been really good. And I know Cade, I think he completed maybe 13 to 15 passes last week, but they were huge chunk plays. You know what I mean? And I think that
set up by the run.
Right. And I think it'll be similar, this Saturday. Like I wouldn't be shocked if we saw another flea flicker, So it just things like that to help, the help chunk plays because it's one thing to, to march 80 yards down the field with just running the ball. It's difficult to do. But if you can throw a chunk play in here, a 15-yard pass, a screen play that goes for 12 or 15, that definitely it just makes it difficult to, to cover. And I just think it'll be, like I said, it'll be a gradual thing. I don't think it's going to be, something crazy. You're probably going to look at a 14-7, at halftime and just Michigan just continue to, to run the ball and like I said, take a couple deep shots, nothing crazy, but yeah, that would be my, my score prediction on it.
See, that's why I said 24-10 because I could see it being like 14-3, Michigan at halftime. So a fairly competitive game. Maybe Iowa gets the ball.
14-3 is not competitive. 14-3 is not competitive.
You don't think so? That's just two. 14-3 scores. This is two scores.
I know, but if Iowa's got, it's not insurmountable. But I don't consider that competitive. I
wouldn't feel good about that as an Iowa fan. Like if you're down based on how I think the teams match up. No. I wouldn't feel very optimistic about the second half if I was an Iowa fan. No. But I'm just saying, I think that's striking range. Like I think
if you're down 11 and it's 24-13, I won't feel good, but I'll feel like, hey, at least we've scored some points.
Okay,
so,
I can see your point.
You know what I'm saying?
It's a score. It's not the score difference.
Not margin.
A margin. Okay, I got you. No. I think it's going to be a competitive first half. I don't think Iowa's going to roll over by no means.
I hope not.
No, I don't think they will. But I just, I said 24-10 because I can see maybe Iowa gets a late touchdown or a touchdown at some point in the second half. But I'm banking on Michigan just wearing Iowa down. And it typically, when Harbaugh plays opponents that personnel-wise he feels like he just has an advantage over, he's not really that aggressive normally. He'll try to just kind of basically kind of choke you out in a way and just kind of wear you down. So I can see situations where in games where there's a higher sense of urgency that you have to keep up your scoring to win the game, Harbaugh may go for it. He's shown tendencies lately, which I'm happy to see. Say he's on the opponent 32-yard line, kind of a longer field goal, like 4th and 2. He'll normally in the past kick a field goal. But in games where he's known that's a higher scoring game, he'll go for it, right? But this type of game where I think he feels very confident in his defense to stop Iowa, I can see him kicking field goals, right? So that's why I don't have like the same margin difference as Des does.
I know this is a different Michigan offense, but let's remember the last 2 meetings against Iowa, the win for Michigan in 2019, the win for Iowa in 2016. Iowa's defense completely shut down Michigan. So that's something to bank on if you're an Iowa fan. I know it's totally different offense, but as far as past matchup, they scored 10 in the win against Iowa in 2019. I believe they scored, like I said, either 12 or 13 in 16. And for the record, I'm not betting the farm on this game. I have again. I would not be shocked if Michigan wins by 10. I'll be surprised if it's 3 scores. I will be surprised by that. Not shocked, but surprised. Let's remember, if you're an Iowa fan, it's not like Iowa always shows up to big games. I think of they showed up in 2015 and lost on by the outreached arm of L.J. Scott in the Big Ten title game. But in 2015, that same year, you go play Stanford in the Rose Bowl, and that was a little different because they had Christian McCaffrey, who was just a freak, and Iowa had nobody to match up with him one-on-one, and the game was over in 5 seconds. I mean, it was literally over in 5 seconds. So it is possible that Iowa can get steamrolled. It's happened before. I just would like to think, again, with Iowa's history against Michigan, with all the disrespect, they've got nothing to lose. There's no pressure on them. Michigan's got all the pressure. There's the hangover effect. I think there will be more Iowa fans there than Michigan fans. Ooh. I don't know what you guys think about that, but you guys have to know Iowa fans travel like. I mean, did you watch a 15 game? I wasn't at the 15 game, but just from what I've heard, even from Michigan State fans, that was one of the craziest Iowa environments people had ever seen. So we'll see. I mean, I know a lot of Michigan fans.
But Michigan State was
Michigan fans do travel. Like
they've never been here. You got to
But
Iowa fans will be there too.
No. I'm just saying, but Iowa. You guys, my point is, it's not so much about Iowa, but you also remember that MSU was already been to the Big Ten title game in 11, I believe, and also 13. And so they've been there twice, right? Michigan fans have been starving for this. Like, so it's possible.
A lot of money was spent on that Big House game last week. But
I get it. I'm just saying
it's a huge fan base too. I think that you know what I mean. Like they have a huge alumni base, huge fan base.
Right. You guys got plenty of money in that fan.
There's fans. Well, and that's the thing too. I'm sure there's plenty of fans, Michigan fans, that live in Indianapolis. You know what I mean? Where it's like, hey man, this is just a
4-hour drive.
How much closer could they ever play? So
right.
That will be interesting to see, like kind of the split as far as is this going to be an Iowa heavy crowd or a Michigan heavy crowd? Just going off on the cusp, I'd probably say Michigan, just because like you said, like the amount of the fan base size and just that they've never been here before.
Mm-mm.
I mean, and
10 years
Jim Harbaugh.
You could be right on that simply because I wouldn't. And maybe it's the amount of time since they've been to it. Well, they haven't been to technically a Big Ten championship game, but I just have a hard time seeing Iowa fans not outnumbering the opponent in Indy. But again, the money factor, you're right. A lot of rich Michigan fans. So all the tickets have been eaten up. So they're all secondhand tickets right now, and they're $300 plus, well, like $400 after fees plus for nosebleed seats. So it's going to be people who are there's going to be people who are not able to buy tickets who normally would, because you can't. Can we drop $1,500 on a trip to Indianapolis? I mean, that's just the reality. I don't even know what hotel costs are in that area.
That's going to be through the roof too. Yeah, that's for sure. It'll be interesting. I like I said, I think just this is the first time, for Michigan fans, and this is a fan base that has been clamoring for, have been waiting ever since Jim Harbaugh was hired to get here. Like that, this was step one of the goal, and to get there with a playoff on the line. I think they will turn out, but you also have the factor too of maybe some fans are going to assume that Michigan wins it, and then maybe travel for the playoff game. Right now, we're assuming it's going to be against Cincinnati, so maybe you save your $2-3 grand on that trip, and maybe you try to go to the first round playoff game. I don't know. I don't have $2 to $3 grand to drop like that. So I don't know how you would think with that.
So this will be my final thing, because I know it's a Michigan show and you want to wrap it up, but I'd like to get your guys' opinions on it. So if Iowa wins, you guys become Iowa fans, at least for the prospect of making the playoff, right? Because I know you probably don't think Iowa has a chance of making the playoff, but realistically, and Mark agrees with this, there is a chance that Iowa could make the playoff as an 11-2 Big Ten champ if all the things play out correctly over the weekend. Like Houston has to beat Cincinnati. Bama cannot beat Georgia. Georgia needs to take care of Bama. Utah needs to beat Oregon. I think Baylor needs to beat Oklahoma State. If all those things happen, I know Iowa was 13 in the polls yesterday, but you're rooting for Iowa to make the playoff in that case, right? If you're a Michigan fan, you don't want the Big Ten left out. I know you want to think about that in general because you guys are.
I'll be too salty, honestly. It's too close to home right now. I may be a little too salty, just in the moment.
Sure.
Maybe
okay.
Had time to digest it for a little bit.
I gotcha.
Yeah, but I'll be a little too salty in the moment.
I think you think they can make the playoff in that scenario?
It's a long shot. Need some help.
It's a long shot. It's a long shot.
I don't think so. I think for as much I don't think, because I look at Alabama and Georgia's favored in that game. So let's say Georgia wins. There's some people who are talking a 2-loss Alabama team
non-champion.
Right. I think it's crazy. I don't think there's any way that happens. But just the fact that there is this narrative already, you know what I mean? Like it's already started. Yep. So I think that's something that's going to kind of hinder, Iowa. But even too, I think because Baylor and OK State are playing. So I think,
but if Baylor wins, they're 11-2. OK State is 11-2. So they're both 11-2 conference champions. So again, you potentially have an 11-2 Oregon team that would be, well, actually Oregon's 10-2 now. So they'd be technically, if I'm not mistaken on that, they'd be 10-3. So the Pac-12 would be, I think I've got that right. Oregon's got 2 losses, so they'd have 3 losses. So you could kind of eliminate them. Then you're talking about Cincinnati would be out, I think, if you lose to Houston. I don't think you get to put them in at 12-1 as a non-champion.
Probably not.
No. If Georgia destroys Alabama, and then I'm missing, what conference am I missing? ACC's not getting in. I don't know. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like Notre Dame, they're probably going to get in that scenario because they're 11-1.
Head coach.
Forgot about them.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. I've heard, I was listening to Reese Davis last night talk about that. Just, is that a factor with the committee? It's not fair to the kids, but that could be a factor to the committee. I think the factor the committee that should be considering with Notre Dame every year is the fact that they continue to choose to stay independent. They should be penalized for that. Absolutely. That's my opinion. And these kids know they're independent when they choose to go to Notre Dame. So you can't say, well, we can't punish the kids. No. You chose to go to a school that's independent. This should be a factor in this invitational that we have right now. And of course, the playoff needs to expand anyways. But I apologize for going off on a tangent. But
no, you're good, man.
I just think it's an interesting scenario. But if again, I'm predicting Iowa wins. If Michigan wins, I'll be a bit Michigan fan. Through whatever the championship game is, January 6th or whatever it is. So.
Well, I think one of the interesting parts is by the time this game kicks off, we're going to know some of those things, right?
Yep.
This is the 8 p.m. game, so we're Alabama and Georgia will have played at that point, and I think the noon game is Baylor Oklahoma State. So some of this stuff is already going to be figured out before Michigan. So
I guess if you're an Iowa fan, you think there's any chance of making the playoff, you'll know if those chances are eliminated. You won't know that it's a play-in game because I still think all those things could happen. Iowa wins and they still don't get in. But if all those things don't happen, you know you're not. So they're not having any pressure. If Cincinnati wins, if Oklahoma State wins, that's it.